listening to episode 121 of Mitolife Radio. I'm your host, Matt Blackburn, and today I'm speaking with Taylor DeGroot of Optimizing Health. Ever since I started studying light therapy, I've been fascinated with the eyes, especially growing up as a gamer. Played quite a bit of video games, Super Nintendo, Dreamcast, all the old school stuff. I was born in the late 80s. And I did spend a lot of time outside, played in the backyard. We had a pool that was above ground. And I was spending time in both, but I was exposed to a lot of screen time. And I think there was a connection there with my eyesight getting worse, needing stronger contacts and stronger prescription. And I actually wore glasses and contacts for many years. So it was really fun to talk to an expert like Taylor about the effects of wearing contact lenses, which we go into quite a bit. And I talk about how I got LASIK, and she shares her thoughts on that. And I think this is a subject that isn't talked about enough, kind of similar to teeth health. All the systems are connected, but I've noticed that there's not a lot of attention paid to dental health and eye health as much as it should. Everyone's focused on the gut, which is connected to your dental health. But if you're only paying attention to that and you're getting exposed to artificial light at night and on your skin at night, and you're not paying attention to this light eye skin piece because our skin has photoreceptors on it, then you're missing a big part of health and hormonal health. So we cover a lot of ground in this show, and near the end, I asked Taylor questions that the listeners sent in. So enjoy the show. Here is Taylor DeGroot. All right. Welcome to the show, Taylor DeGroot.
Thanks so much for having me on, Matt.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this one. I've only had one other episode on eye health, so.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. I'm really excited.
Yeah, and it seems to connect to everything. Like before we were recording, you were just telling me about an article you were reading about pupil dilation, right?
Yeah, so I was actually literally right before I came on here, I stumbled across this article. It's from 2020 study, and they actually found that pupils fail to show the normal sharp constriction when exposed to bright light. So people who have PTSD or a past trauma, they actually have a more sluggish pupillary response. And their pupils actually grew larger in response to emotional stimuli. It doesn't matter if it's an excitatory stimuli or a negative stimuli, their pupils just grow larger than the average participant. So it just goes to show that their nervous system is kind of hyper aware, and they're pretty much ready for anything to come. So that's kind of what happens with trauma in the eyes.
That's interesting. Yeah, I want to dive into that because I just finished a new book by Jacob Liberman, Luminous Life. It was more philosophical, 3/4 of it, but there was a lot of good stuff about physical stuff. And
I actually just read that.
What's that?
I actually just read that as well.
Oh, cool. Did you like it?
I loved it. Yeah, I thought his take on light was super fascinating.
Yeah, one of the parts that stuck out to me was when he I think he shined a light in someone's eye, or it might have just been looking at someone's eye, one of the two closely, and he had the person imagine them doing a successful golf swing and getting it in the hole. And when there was success, they could see a change in the eye.
Oh, wow.
I thought that was pretty cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, I feel the eyes are pretty much the window to anything in the body. I didn't really get interested in eyes until I realized that the eye is actually the only place in the body where you can see the blood vessels without actually cutting someone open. So in that regard, it's truly the window to your overall health. And then after I learned about that, my dog was hit with tons of eye problems. He got cataracts, retinal detachment, glaucoma, and then he actually had one of his eyes removed, which was crazy. So Yeah, it's amazing how your other senses really take over once you lose vision. Like, he's got an amazing sense of smell. Pretty much relies on that to get everywhere. But yeah, I wish I would have known about some of the stuff I know now.
Do you ever see the movie Daredevil with Ving Rhames and a blind superhero guy?
I actually haven't seen that one.
It was really cheesy. It was one of those like, Marvel movies or whatever, but he would like tap with his cane and then it would show like a 3D visual of his environment when he
Oh,
felt the
wow.
vibration from tapping an object. But
That's
uh,
super cool.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's like super fast.
I've heard about people that can do that. They can like literally like they have no vision and they can literally get around perfectly, like shoot a basketball into a hoop, just like crazy stuff using like echolocation, I think it is.
Isn't that kind of how spiders work? Or maybe
I
I'm
think so.
partially.
Could be. I'm not too sure about that.
The vibrations on their hairs. But yeah, that's interesting. So I actually saw something on Instagram recently where a guy was asking why his pupils are always dilated,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought that was excess serotonin. But are there multiple things involved? Do you think to the dilated pupil all the time? Like I've heard cortisol and other things.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a combination of that. I really think anything that's going on in the nervous system is going to affect how your pupils are responding to light, because basically the only thing the brain has to pay attention to is how much light's coming in. So basically, if you're in a chronic stress state, your pupils are going to be dilated most of the time. But actually,
Wow.
as we age, it's kind of interesting. The pupils actually get smaller as we age. So I always find that interesting. Like, whenever I see older patients, they have like these tiny pupils, and a lot of times they're not very reactive to light. So I think that's something going on with the optic nerve and the retinal ganglion cells not being as sensitive anymore.
Interesting. We should probably give you a little bit of an intro. Just diving in. How did you get interested in eye health and when?
Yeah, so I grew up not needing glasses actually until about sixth grade, which is kind of not really typical, but I don't know, maybe I had a traumatic event that spurred me needing glasses. But yeah, so I went to the eye doctor, I got my glasses. I actually did not like my glasses when I first got them. I was like, I never wanted to wear them. I was very, very resistant to them, which is interesting because a lot of people who are myopic, they're kind of, it's more of like a fear based mentality. And they're kind of pushing the world away. So I feel like I kind of had that sense when I got my glasses. And but yeah, I really became fascinated when I realized that you could see so much about overall health when you look in the eyes. Things like high blood pressure. One sign of that is you'll see like kind of a curviness to the blood vessels. They call it like tortuosity. So if the blood vessels are all kinked and curvy, you're not getting as much blood flow to the eye. And that shows what's actually going on in the rest of the body. So that's basically all of your blood vessels probably look like that. Another thing is diabetes. That's a big one. So you'll often see bleeding in the eye. You can see fibrosis in the eye. You can see just lipid that leaks out of the blood vessels. So yeah, there's all sorts of stuff you can
And
see.
this is different from iridology, right? Like this sounds a little more basic than that, or like easier to see. Like,
Yeah, so like I've looked a little bit into iridology, and I think there is some truth to it. Like there's like those nerve rings that you can see on people, and I think it's mostly in type A personalities, people who really internalize stress a lot more. So yeah, I see that on people all the time, and I'm always interested in like what their personality's like if I see those. But yeah, it's iridology is interesting.
that's interesting. So high blood pressure, you would actually see like the in the eyes, like the blood vessels would not be as straight.
Yeah, so basically, in order to look at the retina in the back of the eye, you actually have to put dilating drops in the eye to make the pupils bigger. And then you use this little like lens and a light, and then you use the light to reflect off the lens into the back of the eye. And that gives you this blown up view of the retina. and you can actually see the optic nerve, the blood vessels, and the macula, which is the central part of your vision. And you can also see all the way out into the whole periphery of the eye. So you could pretty much find anything that way. It's pretty
I
crazy.
I think I had that done because I had LASIK, which I'll probably talk about. I
Uh-huh.
think you're not a fan, but it was like 5th generation, and I'm
Yeah,
still good. I think I still have 2015. I haven't
that's,
measured it in a while, but yeah.
yeah. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of LASIK, but there are success stories. Like you, obviously, you're fine. But
For now.
for now. But I mean, some people love it. The thing about it that I kind of makes me be like, is that typically they tend to do need cataract surgery a little bit earlier. I think that might be because the LASIK flap. It's kind of like it never fully heals, so it's kind of like a portal for maybe inflammation and oxidative stress to kind of get into the eye.
I've heard that it never heals, and
Yeah.
I'm always skeptical. I just that something can never heal. I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
they say the heart, once it's, I don't know. It's there's certain things that
I
supposedly
think
cannot regenerate.
it definitely heals. It definitely seals itself over,
Mhm.
but I don't think it's as strong as it once was
Interesting.
before. Because
Is
the
it? Do you think?
cornea, sorry, say
I'm,
that
I'm
again.
sorry. Go ahead.
I definitely think the cornea gets a little bit thinner and weaker because they do take off. That's one thing they have to do before LASIK is make sure the cornea is thick enough.
Interesting, because I wonder if there's like a fibrosis component, or if it's more like you're saying, it's just taking away, and so you literally have to rebuild that, which
I
maybe
think
you're
it's
looking at.
more,
So,
yeah, it's more like that because after LASIK, you can have like epithelial ingrowth, which is like where there's like an extra proliferation of epithelial cells that go onto the lens. So yeah, I think it's definitely the eye has to do some work there to rescaffold everything.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, my friend Victor Mifsud has been looking into the blind biohacker. It's on the show. He's been doing like peptide therapy, and I think it's fascinating because they have oral ones, but then they have like uh, intravenous, I think,
Mhm.
or yeah, one of the, it's this insulin syringe, and people are getting miraculous results with different ones for various different conditions, like especially the eye. He was sharing a cool one for the eyes recently.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've heard him talk about that. I think it's like BPC 157 or something like that. But yeah, I've heard like great things. I've talked to him as well. And yeah, he's had amazing success with that. So yeah, I don't know too much about it, but I'm definitely interested in learning more about that.
Yeah, it seems like a developing thing. So going back to what you were saying, you said myopia, nearsightedness has a
Mhm.
connection to like fear-based mentality, or you said like pushing the
Yeah.
world away.
Yeah, so typically, like myopes, the personality type is kind of more fear based, pushing the world away, not really wanting to see something, like something happened and they just wanted to shut down and close it out. But the interesting thing is that when you actually get glasses, like prescription myopic glasses, it actually kind of takes away a little bit of your peripheral vision and you start to look only through one part of the lens called the optical center. And when you're actually looking through the optical center, you kind of lose sense of the periphery and you can kind of get like tunnel vision. Um, so when you kind of restrict the movement of the eye, because that's pretty much what the glasses do, they kind of lock in your world. So when you're restricting the movement of the eye, you're not as able to access your emotions because the movement of the eye is how we access memories and emotions. And it's basically how we form our view of the world. So it's super interesting in that regard.
Wow, and I'd imagine like mental as well, like ability to entertain new thoughts and
Mm-hmm.
change their mind on things. And
Mm-hmm. That's for sure. Yep.
wow, and maybe how I guess it wouldn't change. Like, have you heard when someone's lying or telling the truth, they look up into the left or up into the
Yeah.
right?
I think that has to do with it. Like, they're not willing to they don't want to give you anyone clues about their thoughts or their emotions, and that's literally what the eyes give you. Like, it's literally a clue into your nervous system. I don't know if you've ever heard this, but they say that when you look at something that you love, your pupils expand or they dilate. And I think it's probably the same thing for any emotional stimuli. It,
Wow. So it could be a good thing. either I'm
it could be.
either I'm breaking down or I love the world. No. Mine tend to be dilated, but the house I've lived in for the last year and a half is very dark. Like I'm in a valley,
Mhm.
and there's like 3 hours of sun a day or something. So that's part of why I'm moving. Like the new house has like 4 times the amount of light and more windows, and
Yeah,
because I'd imagine even indoor light makes a difference, right? In
yeah, for
not
sure.
only pupils but everything.
For sure, yeah. Like when you're outside in the dark, your pupils get big so that you can take in more light. When you're inside and there's a lot of light, your pupils are smaller because you don't need to take in as much light to get a photoreceptor response.
Got it. And
Yep.
so so back to your story, like you got glasses at some point.
Yeah, so I had glasses. I got them in sixth grade because I couldn't see the board far away. I think it's interesting because that's also when I started reading more. So I think there's definitely a correlation there. Like they say that children who are myopic spend less time outdoors. And they also say that with myopia, um, they have a study that shows that children who have an extra 1 hour outdoors each week reduce their risk of myopia by like 14%. Yeah.
Wow.
So, so yeah, definitely like myopic kids have like tunnel vision. They're super focused on their central vision and they kind of ignore the periphery. So that's basically what you do when you're reading, right? Like you're super focused on the central vision and whatever's going on outside, you could care less about. So yeah, eyeglasses
Wow.
pretty much reinforce this because they expand the visual center and then the frames are cutting off your periphery. So basically, a lot of times one thing to do that you can do if like you find yourself having this tunnel vision is to keep something in the periphery in your view and like don't only focus on what you're reading but try to find something in the periphery to focus on. That should help as well.
That makes sense. And
Mhm.
do you agree with Jacob's thing? Like, I think it was near the end of the book. One of my favorite parts is he said, like, look into the distance. I
Yeah,
think he gave a time frame, like once every half hour or
yeah,
something, if you're looking at something close up.
I definitely agree with that. It's like it's kind of like use it or lose it. So like if your brain really likes shortcuts. So if you're constantly doing one thing with your eyes, your brain's going to say, all right, this is safe. This is good. We're going to reinforce this. We're going to put extra myelin on this pathway so that we can reinforce this and we can come back to this. So yeah, the brain really likes shortcuts. And I think that's pretty much why if we're constantly looking up close, our brain's going to say, okay, this is what we're doing. This is safe. This is where we're staying. But
Yeah.
yeah, one
Did
thing
you ever? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I was gonna ask if you grew up with board games. I was a
oh yeah,
gamer for many years.
yeah, that's another one. And the phones are
Video
the
games.
worst now because everyone's
Yeah.
on their phone. But one thing I noticed was I haven't like fully improved my vision enough to the point where I don't need glasses, but I definitely improved a little bit. One thing that I've done is I actually would go outside and I would like take walks and I would practice. So one thing I found that works for me is like I'll blink a bunch of times and I think that kind of relaxes my eyes. And then if I swing my head from side to side, I'll actually stimulate more of my peripheral vision and I'll literally get like a flash of clear. And I can
Wow.
hold it for like I don't know, up to a minute sometimes. It's actually pretty
Wow.
crazy. I actually just discovered this recently.
And you would be classified as like like have myopic vision at this point, or
Yeah, so I have myopia. It's like a minus 150, which is still it's still a low amount of myopia. But I think a lot of people actually are over minused. Like they get, because when you're in the exam room, you're getting the visual prescription that they give you is like worst case scenario. So like you don't always need your worst case scenario amount of power. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So a lot of people, if they're stressed in the exam room, they're basically they're closing in, they're having tunnel vision also because of basically the thing they put in front of your eyes kind of gives you tunnel vision. So it can often lead to people being over minused just because of the settings of the exam room.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, I remember taking tests, and it was probably a combination of poor posture, but I was like, my face was like into the desk, like on the paper. And I know a lot of kids do that in school just for years and years. Like, and I would look up and my vision's all blurry, you know?
Yeah, that's a really good point. There's a big connection between posture and vision. So basically, faulty vision is related to posture in the way that, do you know what astigmatism is?
I've heard of it. Yeah, could you
Yeah,
describe it?
astigmatism correction is basically when you have a stronger correction, but it's just at one angle. So like typically when you're young, you have most of the power at 180 degrees. That's typically where people tend to be. But as we age, it tends to go toward 90 actually. But basically, with astigmatism, it can sometimes mean that you have a twisted body posture. So, like, if one shoulder is higher than the other, your eyes are going to have to kind of adjust for that. So, basically, a tilted head, one shoulder higher, carrying more weight on one leg than the other, that can honestly lead to astigmatism. So, basically, leaving the sill correction in your glasses, it's kind of like reinforcing the imbalance, if you know what I mean.
Wow.
So if you're trying to fix your posture, but you still have the glasses correction in, it's going to be pretty difficult because they're both related to each other. An interesting note to make here is that they actually did a study with violin players, and they found that their development of astigmatism from tilting their head to play the violin for hours was related to the prescription of their glasses. But they found that those that didn't get glasses for astigmatism saw this condition get corrected just by using their eyes normally and having straight posture.
Wow.
Yeah.
I almost became a violinist. I'm glad I didn't.
Yeah. Because like, think about it, you're always like this and you have to like, read the notes. I actually used to play violin. Whenever
Wow.
that happened to me.
Probably telemarketers too, right? I mean, that probably applies to a lot of jobs.
I'm sure.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. This is a super random question. Have you heard of those Amazonian eye drops? It's kind of trending right now, like is it Sananga or something? They like burn your eyes.
Oh, you know who told me about that? Victor actually told me about that. I think I looked into it a little bit, but I'm not too sure. I've never used them.
Yeah,
But
it seems kind of scary.
yeah, he told me he thinks they're helping though, so you never know.
That's cool.
Yeah, I feel like anything can be. I think I've heard you say this. Anything can be a medicine. Anything can be a poison.
Maybe it's better than LASIK. Who knows?
Yeah. I
With,
find it, sorry,
oh,
go
go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay. I find it interesting. Didn't you say that you felt, I think I heard you say this on a podcast, you felt like your memory and your learning got better after LASIK?
Totally. Yeah, that's why I'm really interested to pick your brain on all this, because I definitely felt the difference in like verbal fluidity, memory retention,
Yeah.
just reading comprehension. I mean, you could just, everything improved, everything on the list of information coming into my brain and everything. So I don't know. I guess I don't regret it, but hopefully I don't have to like redo it. I don't know if
Yeah.
people.
It's funny that you say that because vision therapy, I don't know if you've heard of vision therapy, but that
Like
tends
the Bates method?
so vision therapy, I mean, kind of related to Bates method, but I feel like Bates is more just focused on like relaxation. That's like his big thing. Like if you're relaxed, you can receive more light. Um, Vision is the only sense that we really think about. You know what I mean? Like we don't think about hearing all the time. We don't think about smelling all the time. If we're trying hard to look at something, that's going to add stress to the eye muscles, and that's going to affect our vision. So yeah, I really like that Bates talks a lot about that. But what was I talking about? Oh yeah, vision therapy. So vision therapy is basically like retraining the eyes to converge and diverge properly. A lot of people who are myopes actually have trouble diverging. That's when you're relaxing your eyes. So basically, that's like what I was working on because I was doing some vision therapy, and basically my eyes have trouble relaxing, and they're really good at converging, but they have trouble relaxing. So working on things like that. You're also working on, like you said, how your eyes move together really affects your reading comprehension. So one thing I did in vision therapy was tracking. So I would like hang a ball from the ceiling and then spin it around, and then I would lay on the floor and I would watch it with my eyes, just watch it everywhere it went. And so you're really just training your eyes and your brain to work together better. And that really helps with everything from reading comprehension to learning, to everything. And then the other thing I liked that I did was the trampoline. So I would jump on a trampoline. This helps with reading too. So I would jump on a trampoline and then I would read letters off of a wall. So I would go from one side to the other. So I would read like the first letter from one side and the first letter from one side on the other side of the paper, and then go to the second and then the second on the other side of the paper. So you're kind of like looking back and forth while you're jumping up and down. And that's just helping with tracking and how the eyes move. But yeah, that was super helpful for me. Another one that I really like is this helps with like visual memory because that's a big part of learning as well. So you can get like a bag of stuff. It could be like a bag of knickknacks. It could really be anything. And what you have to do is you have to feel the object and then try to remember it, what it looks like. You shouldn't know what the object is because you're really testing yourself. And then you have to draw it exactly how it is to the size. This was actually really difficult for me. But it's also really helpful for visual memory.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So maybe someone else could like pick the object or something, or how's that work?
Yeah. Basically, I didn't pick any. I didn't know what the objects were. So I guess someone does have to pick the object. If you know what it is. I mean, even if you know what it is, it's still pretty hard.
Those are pretty cool little practices.
Yeah, for sure.
Have you seen that that thing I just got? I haven't been using it consistently because I need like a room. It's like the lights that light up. I think Jacob Lieberman promotes it, like the eye trainer, whatever.
I've seen that before. Is it like the Skyport or something like that?
That's it. Yeah.
Skyport. Yeah, that kind of reminds me of like the Brock string. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Mm-mm.
But it's like red and green little balls on a string, and you look back and forth from them. And so when you're looking at one, you should see double of the string. And that means that your eyes are pointed at the right spot. And then everything behind what you're looking at should be double. And then you kind of go back and forth from bead to bead in order to just practice looking back and forth and keeping an object single.
Wow, that sounds like a more affordable way to do it than the machine.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, that's like one of the most basic vision therapy things, but it really works because you actually can see where your eyes are pointed in space, and you'll know if they're working together if you see one. If you see one when you're looking at something, and then everything else should be double. You can actually do it with your two fingers. You can literally hold up your two fingers, look at one of your fingers. If your eyes are pointed in the right spot, your other finger should be double.
Oh yeah! Wow.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of cool. Because
that's awesome.
Yeah, you can't focus on two things at once with your eyes.
Makes sense.
Yep.
You made me think of like the Erlin Institute. I think I found them when I was at the Bulletproof conference one of those years, and I actually had a consultation. I paid for like an intro thing and went to someone's house, and my color ended up being purple, but they had the different things that they had me read through the different colors. And do you think there's validity to that? Because it's super expensive, that's for sure, to do it.
be honest, I haven't explored it too much. I definitely think color is so powerful. Like we don't realize how powerful it is, but it's really a way to change mood and emotion, just like sound. Like there's sound therapy, there's color therapy. Um, it's really about what works best for you. You know, like if that works for you, that's great. Some people respond more to sound, some people respond more to color. I think it depends on the person.
Have you heard Adam Bergstrom talk about how our trauma has like a color associated with it, like whether it's
Yeah,
a breakup or a car crash or whatever happens?
I have heard that actually. Do you think that's why some people have like a favorite color? I feel like everyone has a favorite color, right?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Yeah, it makes sense. It's absolutely true. Yeah, color is
Yeah.
powerful. I remember Adam had like a YouTube video where it's called like color recycling, and it
Hmm.
goes through the colors in a certain pattern, and you just watch them on full screen. It's supposed to help you process trauma.
Yeah. I mean, I don't doubt that it could. Um, I find it fascinating how, have you ever been in like one of those baths that has like different color lights? I think that's so cool. I find it like super relaxing, honestly, because I have one of those in my house. It's like one of those baths, and then like when it's dark, and then you have like the different colors going off. It's actually super cool. I find it super relaxing to have that.
Yeah, it's like this. My sensory deprivation tank has a light with like
Yeah.
different colors, and I guess like ex-military with PTSD or whatever, they can use it with the light because to have complete darkness, I recently learned, can be a huge, tremendous stress to a lot of people,
Hmm.
um, where they like kind of have like a psychotic break or something. But
Really?
um, yeah, that's been an interesting thing for me with the eyes because it's being in an environment where you don't even get one photon coming in to the skin or the eyes. That's a pretty unique environment.
Oh yeah. Um, I know you're a big fan of like the sensory deprivation tank. I find it so interesting that it's like super calming just at some points for a little bit of time, like to not have any light. That can be super, I feel like it can go both ways. Like it can be super calming to the nervous system or it can be bad. Yeah.
Yeah, I just spoke with Morley Robbins. He's like the mineral man a couple weeks ago, and we were largely focusing on copper. And there was a Ray Peat quote where he was saying, uh, "What is it? Sunlight is what keeps copper from becoming iron." I believe.
Yeah. Okay, so it's funny that you bring that up because I was literally just reading something about how melanin in the eye actually gets tied up taking care of the iron so that it can act as an antioxidant for us. And then the problem is that basically what happens is that our copper goes in the tyrosinase enzyme. It's responsible for making the melanin, and then we're bombarded with the ascorbic acid, and then we can't get the tyrosinase to make the melanin, and then it just makes the iron problem worse. Yeah.
that that's a genius connection. That is fascinating. Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I think a lot of people think of just melanin in the skin, right? Like
Yeah. So
darker skin people have more melanin, right, than lighter skin.
so actually the problem with sunglasses is that you're not able to make melanocyte stimulating hormone, which makes melanin, and that protects your eyes and your skin. And I think that's also why blue eyes are more sensitive to macular degeneration because there's less melanin to protect the eyes because it's tied up taking care of the iron.
Wow. And you add like vegetable oils and omega 3s to the
Exactly.
mix, right?
Yeah.
Have you gone down the lipofuscin trail?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, that's a big lift with macular degeneration as well. Like the iron, the omega 3s, that's all complexing and pretty much causing macular degeneration because the all the vegetable oils are getting oxidized in the eye.
Yeah, and it seems like the perfect storm, like because um, that serotonin thing, like a lot of people, there's all these internet memes like, oh, it's the happy, healthy, it's the happy hormone, right? And dopamine's bad. but it's actually kind of reversed. I mean, you still need some serotonin, but having excess is a real issue. And
Oh, yeah. The other,
yeah.
go ahead.
No, you got it.
The other interesting thing is that the melanin relates to the dopamine as well. The melanin relates to the dopamine production in the central nervous system. So the melanin is not only for protecting your skin, it's also mitochondrial energy. It's a superconductor of electricity in the CNS. It traps iron. It's a master absorber of the complete visible light spectrum. So you can't synthesize vitamin D unless you have the melanin to absorb the UV light. And then in addition to that, it also facilitates pineal gland health and function. So I found that connection super interesting.
Wow. Yeah. Have you looked into like people taking like 5-HTP supplements? Like I've taken everything I speak out against now. And like I've just supplemented everything. And one of the things I used to take was 5-HTP. You know, oh, Jim Carrey's taking it, right, for his depression, and you know, it's a cool thing, but it could actually harm the eyes from what I've listened to from Ray Pete. Especially the combination of the iron, the PUFA, the serotonin together. It's like not good.
Mm-hmm. So dopamine is super important for the eyes. Another thing that depletes the dopamine is the blue light. So there's that whole connection where the more blue light we're getting, the less dopamine we're making. And then we also don't have the melanin to help make the dopamine. So we're just getting slammed with things that are depleting our dopamine.
Yeah, and I made a YouTube video years ago when I lived in the RV with talking about the conversion of L-tyrosine to there's like L-dopa, dopamine, but that amino acid L-tyrosine is very light sensitive. And I had a ton of people saying, which supplement should I buy? I'm like, no, you can eat meat and get it. You know, it's like not, you could supplement it, you know, maybe if you're a recovering vegan, but you probably don't need to. You probably just need red meat.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of emphasis. I don't know if you've heard this. There's so much emphasis placed on the carotenoids, like the lutein and the zeaxanthin, because they say they're like macular photopigments that help protect us against blue light and I guess UV light as well. But I feel like nobody talks about melanin. Melanin's probably too tied up.
That is a really good point. Yeah, because people are like, if I'm not taking my 12 milligrams of astaxanthin, what do I do?
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So just by kind of lowering some of that iron overload, do you think that frees up some melanin?
Oh, for sure. And then it's interesting because people who naturally have more melanin, they're not getting macular degeneration. Dark-skinned people, they're not getting macular degeneration. It's the light hair, blue-eyed people that are getting macular degeneration. So that melanin, man, it's super protective.
Wow. Yeah, I don't listen to him too often anymore. I used to, for years, I was like on the Dr. Jack Cruz, that neurosurgeon train, and doing all the stuff, all the things, the omega-3s, you know, sugar's bad. And I was listening to him in a podcast the other day, and he said that he said something interesting, that darker skinned people are adapted to getting more full spectrum light, whereas lighter skinned people can go without it. So they could live in more northern latitudes, whereas darker skinned people have to stay more by the equator. But he was kind of promoting the cold thermogenesis, which I don't know if you looked into that connection. I used to be obsessed. I'm open, you know, I'm moving to a place with a huge cold lake, probably going to go swimming, but supposedly the cold has like crazy effects that kind of like a light surrogate, which sounds crazy, but like if you're not getting light, but you do cold therapy, it's like a replacement. I don't know if you looked, I guess it's effects on the brain and dopamine and everything, but.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, that's actually really interesting. I haven't done too much cold therapy. You know what I've actually done? I've done the cryotherapy. And I would actually get like a crazy boost of energy after that. I thought that was super effective. Kind of cool.
Yeah, I think it has its place. I think it's just overused. People
Yeah.
just jump into Wim Hof and psychedelics and cold therapy all at once. It's like, okay. It's like,
I
too
definitely
much.
like the sound better, but
Yeah.
it's cool to once in a while.
Yeah, I think the sauna improves dopamine too, I'm pretty sure, right? It has a pretty powerful effect on
Yeah,
neurochemistry.
yeah, that's cool too. Sauna's
Um, but yeah, that's a good point about carotenoids. So um, I don't think we finished your story, did we? So you got, so you just decided to devote your life to studying eye health, or?
yeah, I mean, pretty much. I was like, I don't know. I just got super inspired. Like, it was so heartbreaking to see my dog lose his vision. The sad part about glaucoma in dogs is actually that I think 40% of dogs that get glaucoma will go blind. And I think it's actually because they catch it so late with dogs because they're not like going to get their eye exams every year. Um, but in people, we actually were able to catch glaucoma super early now. And that's why people aren't tending to lose vision from it because we're able to get drops in the eyes, which are actually super effective at lowering the pressure. And then when you lower the pressure, people aren't losing vision. It's only when you catch glaucoma late that you run into big problems and you can lose a lot of vision.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I share a lot of info for cats and dogs because I just
Mm-hmm.
really feel for them. Like, I feel like they're domestic animals are really abused and it's
Oh,
like not talked about. Like, just forcing them to live indoors and feeding them garbage and tap water. It's just so depressing to me. But
honestly, yeah, honestly, that's probably what contributed to my dog's eye problems. Like, if it were up to me, he'd be eating like the highest quality food. But he's like living with my parents. He's getting tap water. He's getting like he was getting like regular dog food. I mean, I'm sure that definitely contributed to his early cataracts. He was only 5 years old when he
do
got.
you know, did he go outside often? Because you were talking earlier about the 14% drop going outside for.
You know what's funny? He was actually a very timid dog. Like when we first got him, he was literally scared to leave the kitchen. So I maybe like there could have been some like trauma there because I remember we actually knew we got him from a family. So it was just like a family. Their dogs had puppies. They had like 12 puppies, and we were like visiting them every week because we were like so excited. Um, we picked out the dog, but the saddest thing was actually when we took him home, the mother was actually biting at the leash, trying to like not let him leave. Like she was like very like upset about this, and it was actually the craziest thing to see. I actually felt like super bad for her because like she's literally just like watching her children get taken away. Um,
That's the life for a lot of animals. Like, I do the goats, and it's just sad because
yeah,
that's part of having a dairy goat. Right?
it's literally just like heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, he was a super timid dog, like at first. But he's a great dog. He's like very protective, very loving. He's a great dog. I love him.
Yeah, but the foods. I mean, I can't find like a food for my cat that doesn't have a fish oil in it, like a salmon oil or herring oil, and like, unless you put your animal on a raw diet, which a lot of people are doing now, like the barf diet, I think, biologically appropriate raw food diet.
Uh-huh.
But you have to start them young, I think, otherwise they won't do it. So.
Exactly. Oh, wow. Yeah, I definitely, if I ever get another dog, well, yeah, if I ever get a dog, I'm definitely gonna go with the raw diet. Probably seems to be the best thing.
Yeah, probably a little more expensive, but if you do
Yeah,
ground beef,
yeah. Even just
um,
giving them real food, like
right, something other than the kibble, yeah, anything. Do you want to jump into some of the questions?
sure, yeah, let's do it.
Um, we had a bunch on floaters, and we were talking before we started recording that you've looked into that a little bit.
Yeah, so floaters are often due to oxidative stress. So it literally could be anything, like anything that's causing stress on the system. Basically, what it is like as we age, the vitreous, which is basically what nourishes the eye, that kind of starts to degrade. There's collagen there, there's a lot of nutrients there, like vitamin C is super important for the back of the eye. I know there's a high amount of glutathione as well. There's a lot of trace minerals. So basically, the eye stops getting all the nutrition that it needs. The antioxidant capacity of the eye decreases, and you start to have degeneration of that vitreous gel in the back of the eye. So oftentimes what happens is as it degenerates, little pieces of it come off, and you kind of get a shrinkage and a liquefaction effect. And that is kind of what's causing some of the visual disturbances. But I've also heard that things like mold, a lot of people with mold have eye floaters. And I really think that is because of the high amount of oxidative stress that's going on in the eye. This is interesting. I know that a lot of people think like parasites might be able to cause floaters because basically, like, if you have anything in the vitreous, the light is going to cast a shadow off of that, and that's what you're going to see. So basically, anything that's in the back of the eye could be causing a floater. So yeah, with the parasite, it's interesting because I was actually in work today. There was this one technician. She was telling me a story about this guy who actually got a parasite on his optic nerve from eating raw pork. And she was telling me that he went in with decreased vision because the parasite was literally on the optic nerve, so he couldn't see. He actually had to have surgery to remove the worm, and I guess the nest because there was like a cyst or something, I think, with like eggs in it, I guess. But I don't know. So they removed the parasite. His vision gets a little bit better. I think it was like 20/40, which is only like a couple lines above perfect. But yeah, super crazy story. I was like, oh my gosh.
It makes me laugh when people say they're symbiotes. Have you heard that they're good for us? Like,
yeah. I don't think modern day gives us enough protection. Modern day lifestyles. We're definitely susceptible hosts.
yeah, I mean, I have you looked into the connection with like you said, oxidative stress,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been kind of meditating on for the last few years, like artificial light, harmful EMFs, like Wi-Fi and cell towers, and I mean, you just think about like going to an airport or something, right? It's like you're getting blasted. They usually have blue light on the plane itself. I mean, you're just modern like driving in a car, people's work. I mean, I go to my tax people. It's like they're crazy lights blasting down. I'm just like, how are these people still alive? But those are big contributors to the oxidative stress, like artificial light, which is an EMF, and then the light itself.
Definitely. It also impacts the dopamine levels, which impacts the lacrimal gland's ability to actually produce tears. So dry eye, that's a big thing with the blue light. It's actually affecting the lacrimal gland. So yeah, the best thing to do for that is honestly to balance it out with red light. Got to balance out the blue.
You just answered one of the questions someone asked about dry eyes. So.
Yeah. Another thing for dry eye that I love is colostrum, because colostrum is super high. I think you know this in lactoferrin, and so it's antiviral, antibacterial. Basically, it's gonna bind to iron, and iron is something that pathogens just flourish with. So there's also the endotoxin connection with dry eye. So a lot of people with dry eye, they have high endotoxin load. There's higher inflammatory markers on the eye with dry eye. And they've also found decreased lactoferrin in the tears with people who have dry eye.
Wow, so that colostrum's, and in milk, right? Milk has lactoferrin.
Yeah, milk, but colostrum just has a lot more of it. That's why I mentioned that. But milk too. I think they used milk in this study, actually. Yeah.
Wow. Have you looked at like my, I guess, main three for the eyes are like retinol, vitamin E, and niacinamide? You looked at any of those for the eyes? Or?
Yeah, I love all of those for the eyes. The eyes are supposed to be making, what is it, like 8 times more, they need like 8 times more ceruloplasm than the rest of the body because they have such a high amount of mitochondria. So basically, we need the retinol from the animal foods that lets us load the copper into the ceruloplasm. And if we're too high in iron, that antagonizes the copper. So that's a big contributor to the oxidative stress issue. So yeah, it's a super good point.
Interesting. Let's see what other questions we have here. We have so many that came in. Um, let's see, floaters. Yeah, how to heal damage from looking at your phone, blue light and small print. I think you've kind of dropped tips throughout this interview on just like look up every once in a while, right?
Look up. The other thing with blue, I actually learned this the other day. I found it super interesting. So I learned that if you get sun exposure like throughout the day, especially midday sun, there's something special about early sun. The goal should be to get early sun right in the morning if you can catch a sunrise or sunset, and then the midday sun, and then also to get the light at night because that's going to tell your photoreceptors to start producing the melatonin. So if you're getting light throughout the day, it's actually protective against blue light. So that's another thing. So just getting sunlight throughout the day is super important to protecting your eyes from the blue light.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think in the interview with Victor, I talked about when I lived in Southern California by the beach, I would put my feet in the wet sand at sunset. I was too lazy for sunrise, so I'd make it for sunset. And it would almost be like I would feel this warmth in my chest, my brain would light up, and it would be like a buzz for the rest of the day. And it was like the last 15 or 20 minutes, and I would stare directly into the sun. And I think there was a lot going on there in my eyes, my brain, and my nervous system, and the grounding. And that's like a really simple, free thing that everyone could do, I think.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I totally agree with that. Like if you don't have a red light, like not everyone has like a red light therapy device, but the best thing to do is just to view the sunrise and the sunset if you can. It's honestly so good for the circadian rhythm and that it's optimizing all your hormones. It's setting the clocks for literally all of the organs in your body because every organ in your body has a specific clock that it runs on. And basically the SCN, the suprachiasmatic nucleus, that's the fancy name for what's running all of the clocks in your body. So if you get that light, you're just optimizing every organ system.
I love it. Yeah, it's interesting because I've heard from I think crews that we have our cortisol release in the morning. It's like 4 a.m. I think from the paraventricular nucleus or something. And Adam on my show said he drinks coffee like sometimes in the middle of the night or right before bed. I'm like, how does that work? I guess if it's not increasing cortisol or.
Yeah, so I know that like we have the cortisol waking response. So like cortisol is supposed to, when you get the light in the beginning of the day, midday sun, I think, or early morning sun as well, it stimulates the release of cortisol, and then slowly as the day goes on, it's supposed to taper out. If someone's chronically stuck in fight or flight, that's not usually the case. But yeah, I actually learned the other day that we're actually supposed to have an increase in wakefulness like an hour before bed. So apparently it's normal if you find yourself to be a little bit more alert, like maybe an hour or so before bed. So yeah, that's
interesting.
Yeah, apparently it's like evolutionary. We would be like getting ready for bed and like gathering up supplies, stuff like that. That's the reason.
Wow. I think Sean Stevenson, I read his book like Sleep Smarter like 5 years ago, and he was saying that that's like the second wind, and then people will stay up, and then they're like, then that stimulates the stress response, and sets them up for a horrible next day.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if we talked about cataracts. We had a bunch of questions. Can you reverse a cataract?
Okay. Yeah. So actually, have you ever read Ray Peat's stuff on cataracts?
Maybe a little bit.
He talks a
lot. He has a lot.
Like, thyroid plays a role because that leads to excess cortisol relative to pregnenolone and progesterone. And then he also talks about how there's an increase in lactic acid with cataracts. So as carbon dioxide decreases, lactic acid increases. So there's that connection there. And then they also found that people with cataracts have like excess cortisol. And in addition, people with cataracts, they often have like too much sugar in the blood. So like diabetics get cataracts like really early. That's something that's interesting to note.
Yeah, that's one thing I wanted to talk about in this interview because, like I always say, there's alternative health and there's alternative health, and like I try to be in at least one layer deeper than like what you hear, like the mainstream alternative, and usually what they'll say is like, avoid sugar, eat cruciferous vegetables, go paleo, go keto, intermittent fast, and that's good for your eyes, right? But it seems to actually be kind of the opposite. Like the more you restrict sugar, the more you increase that stress response, right? That cortisol and adrenaline to release glucose. Yeah.
There's definitely a big people who have high cortisol, definitely they're getting cataracts earlier. So if sugar is able to reduce stress on the system, but your minerals have to be right. So if your sugar increases the metabolic needs of the body, so if you don't have all your minerals in check, sugar you might not want to overdo it. You know what I mean? With the sugar. But I definitely think in the right context, it can be super helpful.
Yeah, it's a good point. Question for me: have you heard of Stargardt's disease?
Yes. Okay. So
It's an interesting one.
I've actually seen people with this condition. They say it's genetic, right?
Yeah.
But oftentimes, like they'll test, because I actually worked in a low vision clinic. So I saw a bunch of people that had all these like weird inherited retinal disorders. And a lot of times they would have someone in the family that had it. So I do think that there is some sort of, genetic predisposition toward it. Whether or not that can be influenced by the epigenetics. So if these people led different lifestyles than their ancestors, would they have different outcome? That I can't really tell you because there's also like so few people who have this. But it would be interesting to see if epigenetics could, I think it probably could, change the outcome in a lot of these kind of inherited retinal disorders.
Yeah, I wonder, I forget if I've read if lipofuscin can be transferred from mother to child. I would imagine it can because they're building the baby from what the mother, from the mother's body.
Yeah, I feel like the components that contribute to lipofuscin can definitely be transferred from mother to child, right? Because like the hormonal profile gets imprinted on the child.
Yeah. It was fascinating to me that wearing sunglasses helps prevent the progression of the disease. I'm like, whoa, the blue light connection.
I think it also has to do, there's another one. Have you heard of like Fabry's disease?
Mm-mm.
It's actually like a liposomal storage disorder. So if you look up that one, I think that would be super interesting. You might be interested to study that.
What's that called?
It's called Fabry's, Fabrys, Fabry's disease. Look it up. It's a rare genetic deficiency in an enzyme. It's a specific type of liposomal storage disorder.
Interesting. Globotrios. That's a really long word. So basically the fat metabolism is messed up. I'm saying.
Pretty much. Yeah. And you get the buildup of, let me look this up again. Let me look up the retina. Yeah, I think you get like a buildup probably of lipofuscin, right?
Yeah, it says you get Fabry disease from your parents. The problem is that your body can't make an enzyme called alpha galactosidase A, which you need to break down fatty substances like oils, waxes, and fatty acids.
Yeah. Crazy.
Interesting.
It's crazy that you can inherit. There's so many like mitochondrial disorders that you can actually inherit from the mother.
Yeah, because it's only the mother, right, that passes down the mitochondria.
I heard that before,
Yeah.
but then I think I also heard that like they deemed that not true anymore. So I don't know what to believe anymore. But yeah, I think that's like, I think most of it at least is from the mother.
Someone asked about eye allergies. Have you looked into that? Does that mean like your eyes are reacting to
Hmm. Yeah,
dust and
so
stuff?
this is interesting. So I think the mold connection to this is super interesting because I saw a patient the other day, and especially people who get like they get like giant bags under their eyes and like the whole eyelid is just swollen. And I think it could be related to VOCs in the air because she was saying that she just moved into like a new place and there's brand new everything. And then the mold connection because your sinuses are right behind the eyes. So I think the endotoxin, the VOCs, and all of that. And then the mold also makes like some resistant bacteria in the nasal passages that are probably producing tons of endotoxin. So I feel like that's definitely related to the swelling in the eyes that I see a lot. And then the sluggish lymphatic pathways as well,
Interesting.
causing the
Wow.
swelling in the eyes.
This is a weird one. What does flashing mean in the bottom of vision?
Okay, so flashes are one of the kind of if you get flashes, they tell you make an appointment with the eye doctor right away. Mainly because it could mean that you're having retinal detachment because the retina is only responsive to light. So basically, if something's tugging on the retina, it's going to produce light. So if your retina detaches, your body sees that as light because there's like shadows moving on the retina. So basically, that could also be a sign of a PVD, which is like a posterior vitreous detachment. And pretty much that this happens as we age. So you know how I was talking about how there's like aqueous in the back of the eye, and it like the vitreous, and basically what happens as we age is it liquefies and it shrinks, and then it tends to pull away from the back of the retina. So when that happens, when it pulls away, because it's kind of tethered on different parts of the eye. So as it pulls away from the back of the eye, people can experience flashes of light and floaters. So normally, if that happens, you go and you get an eye exam. The doctor can actually see if you've had a posterior vitreous detachment, and they'll actually see something in the retina. It's kind of like a circle that you see, and they're like, okay, you had a PVD, like there's no retinal detachment. We're just going to watch it, basically. But
Wow.
worst case scenario, it is a retinal detachment. Yeah.
Could that lead to blindness? Like what happens if it goes all the way? Like person just goes blind?
Yeah, so retinal detachment, definitely an emergency. They're gonna get you into surgery like ASAP. Sometimes they can do like a buckle to like kind of buckle it back down, or they'll put like a gas bubble in the eye, and you'll actually have to like have your head down, like so that the retina can like tack back down, and you can hopefully recover your vision. But it doesn't always work. So yeah, retinal detachment's a big deal.
Wow. Have you ever, kind of random question, looked into hyperbaric oxygen therapy for eyes? Because it seems like there's a lot of studies on that.
Yeah, I've looked into it. If you ever have an ischemic attack, so part of a blood vessel, like a plaque, blocks off a blood vessel, and then you kind of lose oxygen to the eye and your vision goes down quickly. That's one of the treatments that I really would recommend for that. Is if you can get into hyperbaric oxygen chamber quickly, the sooner the better visual outcome you're going to have.
Oh, that's awesome.
Kind of restore blood flow because that's what you're losing in that case.
Hmm.
Tons of blood flow loss.
This is a good practical question. Like, my partner has -6 vision, 53 years old. Can he get rid of his lenses or glasses? Are either is either one better or worse? Contacts or glasses?
That's a good question. So if I had a -650, you probably can't see a lot like without them. So like I go without my glasses all the time because I'm not like a super high myope. But one thing you can do is if you can get like a reduced prescription. I know some people have success with like reducing their vision with that. Basically, you get a reduced prescription, and then your eyes have to work a little bit instead of always just being given what they need. So basically your eyes are kind of not working as much, and they're getting kind of stagnant, like kind of like use it or lose it kind of thing. So I would say, yeah, if you can try to maybe get a reduced prescription, other things to improve your vision are just like going outside, being in nature, anything that's going to relax the eyes. So I know Bates talks a lot about this, but the palming, it's basically like you put the palms of your hands on your eyes, and that kind of is really super relaxing for not just the eyes, but the nervous system as well. So you can try relaxation exercises, the reduced prescription method, and then just getting outside in nature. That's honestly the best thing to improve vision. I've had people message me saying that like the best thing for their vision that they ever did was taking off their glasses and going out into nature and just looking far away, using their peripheral vision. Things like that will definitely help.
That's free. That's awesome. I think it was on your page on one of your stories. I saw there's like contact lenses that allow oxygen, and I think the key was UV light through. Is that you that posted that?
So most contacts actually block UV light, which if you want to be making melanin in your skin, if you want to be synthesizing vitamin D, I'm not saying that UV light is all great. It can definitely cause damage if you're getting way too much of it. But I personally don't wear sunglasses. I just would wear a hat, or you can even do neutral gray lenses, and that will reduce all the spectral intensities equally so that you'll still be getting the benefits of the UV light. So yeah, the contacts block, check your contacts. I think most of them, if not all of them, block UV light. There's this one brand, it's called, oh my God, I'm just blinking on the name, Dailies Total One. And they're actually the most comfortable contact lenses. I don't wear contacts, but I've tried them before. And they're pretty much the most comfortable. Unfortunately, they're also most expensive, of course, but they don't block UV light.
That's awesome. Yeah, I wore contacts for I think like 5 or 6 years. It was quite a while, and I just remember the end of the day taking those things out. It was like my whole body could breathe. Like my eyes were sore. It was the worst feeling, and like I couldn't relax till I took them out, and it was just like they're such a pain.
Such a pain. And then there's people that are actually sleeping in their lenses, and then they're getting less oxygen to the eye, which in turn is like less oxygen to the brain. So it's awful.
Yeah, I remember falling asleep on accident with them in, and I would wake up and it feels like my eyes like crusted over. It was like the worst feeling.
Yeah, it's really awful. And then you can also get like ulcers and stuff. Like I see people come in from like contact lens overwear. They like their lenses are like super dirty because you can see like all of the stuff on them, and they have ulcers. Like they literally get bad infections, and if you get an ulcer like in the center of your cornea, you can like lose vision. It's pretty bad.
Wow. Yeah, what I think I tried, like I bought the Pinhole glasses and I was doing like the figure 8, and I was integrating a few things, and then I went to work one day. I think I tried it for like 2 days without my contacts, and I think I was like a negative 3.5 or something. Like it was pretty bad, myopia. And I just remember getting a hardcore headache, like 2 hours into working or whatever. Like I was like, I don't need my glasses, I don't need my contacts, and my head just shooting headache. I guess because my brain was not used to trying to adjust, right, and focus.
That's crazy. Wait, so did you like the Pinhole glasses? Or
I did feel something from them. Yeah, it was just the black one, the usual ones, and they did feel good, but I guess I wasn't too consistent with them. I'd put them on for, I don't know, half an hour at night or something.
I'm under the impression that like they can be helpful because you're kind of retraining your brain like what it's supposed to see, and then you're not having to put in any effort. So I think in that sense they can be helpful. I just don't think they're like a cure for anything. But if they like relax your eyes, that's great, and maybe train your brain a little bit into to see what it's like to see clearly. But yeah, the Pinhole glasses are cool.
Yeah. How can you heal lattice of the eyes? I've never heard of that.
Okay, yeah. So lattice is actually it's more common in myopic individuals, which is interesting. So myopic individuals, they actually have more of a stretched out retina. And I think that has to do with how the eye developed and how it grew. Maybe they weren't as exposed to as much light to really regulate the growth of the eye. And maybe it also has something to do with diet. Maybe they weren't getting the right nutrition to the eye. So the retina is kind of stretched out. In that case, what happens when the retina is stretched out is you just have to watch it more because it's more prone to things like a retinal hole or like a retinal detachment or a retinal tear. So in that case, you just have to really I would focus on nutrition and just supporting your body so that your eye can receive the proper nutrition and nothing ends up happening. But usually it's fine. Usually nothing happens from lattice. They just watch it.
I think my goats have lattice eyes. It's like the
Oh.
long black. They're
Yeah.
like cuttlefish, right?
The goat pupils are interesting. They're like square, right?
Like aliens. Yeah, it's kind of creepy sometimes.
But yeah, lattice isn't, it usually doesn't result in anything catastrophic.
Okay. Um, what about wet? Someone's asked help or tips for wet macular degeneration. I didn't know there's different. Is there like wet and dry macular degeneration?
So the wet kind, that's actually the bad kind. So typically what happens is it starts out as dry and then it can progress to wet. And if it progresses to wet, that's when you really have to worry about like starting to lose your vision from it. So that's when it gets pretty serious. I would say all the things that are gonna reduce the lipofuscin in the eye and the calcification piece as well. So reducing your intake of those polyunsaturated fatty acids, specifically the processed seed oils, is going to be a big one. Making sure that you're just up with your nutrition, you're getting all your minerals. Magnesium is super important. Potassium. I know there's also sodium that's important for the eye, just like the sodium potassium ratio, because those are some of the first minerals to go when we're under stress. And then, yeah, I would just make sure your nutrition's on point.
That's awesome. Ocular rosacea, how to treat that?
Ocular rosacea. I'm trying to.
There's so many conditions of the eye. I had no
I know.
idea.
I know what this is, and I'm trying to think because it's connected to something. I think it's mostly connected to the gut. Actually, it's like, do you know what rosacea is on the cheeks? You know when people get like
Yeah.
super red cheeks, it's like kind of like that. Like they get rosacea with the eyes as well. Yeah, so I think it
Wow.
really has to do with some sort of nervous system dysfunction as well, like chronically elevated cortisol, maybe. I don't know. That's my best guess.
A lot of people are dealing with that one.
And I think the gut plays a role in that as well.
Yeah.
Like I would look for like pathogenic bacteria in the gut. Maybe do like a GI map or something.
Mm-hmm. This is a good one. Do blue light glasses really work?
I mean, I think they're important. I'm not wearing mine right now. I should be because there's artificial light. I am pretty good about it. I do wear mine like pretty much every night. I kind of just want to be alert right now. But basically, I think they're super important, specifically because if you're getting blue light at night, you're delaying the pineal gland secretion of melatonin. So, mainly for sleep, there was a recent study that just came out that, like, I feel like every eye person was like, oh, blue light blockers like don't work because they don't reduce eye strain. Because there was recently a study that came out that was like blue light blockers like don't reduce eye strain, and then they were all like bashing on them. And I was like, guys, like everyone's forgetting about melatonin. Like, I think it's super important, mainly for that, and then also just the blue light macular degeneration piece. I think there's a connection there.
Yeah, and I think turning down the brightness too on the phone helps a lot, right? Like at night, having it at full brightness doesn't really make sense.
I don't know if you have this on your phone, but I have like the red.
Oh,
I have like the red screen. You can like go into your settings. I think it's under hold on here.
It's like color.
Yeah, color filters. It's under privacy, I think. I don't know. But yeah, you can change your screen to be red. That's what I do.
Yeah, reduce white point too. Yeah, I think there's some YouTube videos on how to do that. There's like a bunch of steps, but yeah, that's a good point. Let's see. This is a good one. Can you reverse nearsightedness completely?
That's a good question. I'd like to reverse mine completely. I definitely think it's something worth exploring. I definitely think a lot of people are over minus, like I said earlier in the episode. So try to figure out if you're over minus. There's also a condition called pseudomyopia. So that's a spasm of like the ciliary muscle, and that is actually what's inducing the myopia. So I would look into maybe seeing if you have a condition like that. That can actually be reversed when you fix how the eye muscles are working together. So I would say if you have that condition, there's a good chance. But otherwise, I would say definitely explore it. I'm all for getting more natural light, looking more into the distance, not spending all of your time looking up close, because that's literally training your brain to only do that. So anything that your eyes do, the brain is saying, okay, this is good, let's reinforce this.
And that's even for reading an actual book, right? No matter, as healthy as that is, you still want to.
And also, like I said, if you keep something in the periphery in your field of view while you're reading, I know it's kind of hard to do, but if you focus on that as well, that can definitely help. Help not to get you into that tunnel vision mindset.
So if I'm sitting in a chair, like reading, and I have the book, like you're saying, put something on the ground, kind of in front of me, maybe like 4 feet away or something, or
it doesn't matter what it is, but like anything in the periphery, just be cognizant of it. Like I have a book right here, and then as I'm looking at this book, I am also noticing in my periphery that there's a desk right here.
Got it. Interesting.
So every
Okay.
now and then you're reading, just notice something in the periphery.
Awesome. Why would one eye be way more blurry than the other?
That's interesting. There's a condition called amblyopia. I don't know if you've heard of it, but basically something in development happens and the eye doesn't get, maybe it's like the eye's not getting all the nutrition that it needs. So the visual fibers don't develop properly and the brain doesn't see as much input from that eye. So you'll have like reduced vision in that eye. So I don't know if they're talking about that condition, but that's one reason for it.
Interesting. I don't think we talked about glaucoma. We had a few questions like prevention and treatment.
There's a good amount of evidence for the use of niacinamide with glaucoma. I think that's because it increases the NAD, which helps the mitochondria. I would say definitely that. In addition, so glaucoma is basically, you can think of it like the Alzheimer's disease of the eye. So it's basically a neurodegenerative process. So you're losing basically the cells, the axons of ganglion cells are in the eye are dying. That's pretty much what's happening.
Wow.
Yeah. And the scary part about it is that most people that have it, if you don't get checked, you won't know that you have it because you're kind of slowly losing your peripheral vision. And because you're slowly losing it and it's your peripheral vision, you don't notice it as much. So early treatment is the best thing for glaucoma. The other thing I'm going to say about that is I was looking at some studies on methylene blue actually in helping glaucoma. So I think that would be maybe something to look into as well.
Great for Alzheimer's as well, right?
Anything that's going to help for Alzheimer's is going to help for glaucoma because they're both neurodegenerative processes.
Have you looked into near infrared light therapy for the eye? Like there's some really awesome studies. Like this one's near infrared light therapy of eye diseases. Basically talks about just helping the mitochondria, which seems to be hammered right in a lot of these diseases.
Yeah. That's interesting. I definitely think that could be helpful, along with the red light because it's anti-inflammatory and it also helps the mitochondria. Um, Another thing I forgot to mention with glaucoma is actually I think there's a big breathing portion to that because it's also about the oxygen that's getting to the eye and the nutrition. So if you're mouth breathing, there's something called like normal tension glaucoma, and I really think that's related to breathing and how much oxygen is getting to your eye, especially at night, because we know that the at night that's when our brain detoxes. So I suspect that's also probably when the eye detoxes. I never personally looked that up, but I think that makes sense. So
That does make sense.
if you're mouth breathing, you're not getting as much oxygen to the brain, so therefore you're probably not getting as much oxygen to the eye. So I would say that's definitely something to look into. If you're not even sometimes you could be mouth breathing, but you don't even know that you're doing it. So I would look into mouth tape if I had normal tension glaucoma.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm a big fan of that. Someone says after a year of no sunglasses, one eye has improved to 2015.
Oh,
Will my worst eye improve too? It was nutrition, right? Good.
wow. That's interesting that the eyes improved from not wearing sunglasses. The other thing why sunglasses are not so great is because they also, when you're in the sun, you know how your pupil's supposed to get smaller? Sunglasses kind of prevent that. So maybe just getting more light into the eye is what helped their vision. But also when you're in the sun, you're supposed to squint a little bit. So it also prevents that from happening. So I think those are like natural protective mechanisms that we have when we're in the sun. And then when we're wearing sunglasses, it kind of takes them away. So it's really interesting. I read something the other day about how sunglasses might increase the UV rays in the germinative layer of the lens.
Wow.
Yeah, because your pupil's not constricting.
That's wild. Yeah, it seems like there's nothing good about sunglasses. I mean, if you don't, if it's making a drive safer, maybe, but definitely
Yeah,
not where you're on the beach, right?
yeah, exactly. I think there's some situations where they might be useful, particularly like if you're on the water maybe all day, or there's definitely situations where,
Snowboarding.
yeah, snowboarding. I think there's situations where they're worth, wearing, but majority of the time, I personally don't.
Yeah. Wandering eye. I think I had a family member that has this where like one eye, if you looked into it, someone says, how would you heal a damaged optic nerve resulting in wandering eye?
Damage optic nerve resulting in wandering eye.
All the stuff you've been talking about.
Yeah, the best thing for a wandering eye is vision therapy. If you have like a lazy eye when you're a kid, they often do patching. So that's common practice. They'll patch the good eye so that the bad eye has to work a little bit more because if you have your good eye, it's always going to be taking over for the bad eye. So that's why they do that. So I don't know, maybe you could try patching for a wandering eye, see if that helps.
Makes sense. Changing eye color. Have you ever looked into that?
Changing eye color. I know you can do it with colored contact lenses.
Supposedly, because I used to be like raw vegan, and that would be like the big cool thing to do on YouTube. Like, oh, the raw vegan diet, I detoxed, and I so much that my eye color changed.
Okay, so I've seen the pictures of, do you know that like zeolite spray that everyone uses? I've seen the pictures of people's eyes changing color from that, and it's really hard to tell. I never know if it's like just the lighting. You know what I mean? I feel like it's hard to get like the exact same lighting in a picture. So I don't know.
could,
Maybe that is like a real phenomenon.
could just be Photoshop.
I think there's something to be said. I know like in iridology, they like are always looking at like if this certain detox is going to change the eye color. One thing I do kind of believe in with that stuff is, have you ever looked at the iris crypts? If you like, have you ever seen what
Mm.
that looks like? So if you see
No.
the iris crypts, they tend to be like really loosely wound. And then they say that means like you have like a weak constitution. And then like if they're tight and there's not a lot of like holes in the iris crypts, then that means you have like a strong constitution. I always found
Hmm.
that fascinating.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's amazing what you could see from the outside without like opening up the body, right?
I
Like,
know. It's really crazy. I have some
uh,
crazy pictures on my phone. Whenever I see someone who has like drusen in their eye, which is basically like lipofuscin in the eye, I always look to see if they have the spots all over their body. And like 9 out of 10 times, I see like they have a ton. So I always
wow,
like making those observations.
interesting.
Yeah, I always,
Um, yeah, usually there's multiple signs, right? It's not just one. So,
yeah, exactly.
um, eye cysts. Have you looked into that? You kind of mentioned the parasite one, the egg hatchery.
Uh, if they mean like cysts, like you can get like little cysts like under there. If that's what they mean, I think it can often be due to like irritants. So like if you have like chronic pollutants in the air or just like really you're around a lot of dust, you're really allergic to the pollen, it can cause like actually like an inflammatory reaction. And then that's sometimes what can cause a cyst like under there, kind of on it's called like the palpebral conjunctiva. I don't know how. If you pull your eyelid down, that part over there, like the red part, that's oftentimes where you'll see cysts. And I feel like it's probably due to some environment irritation. But you can also get them like on the oil glands, and that just means you have clogged oil glands. Um, so the composition of the meibum, which is what comes out of the oil glands, it's a little bit too thick and viscous. One thing you can do for that is just apply heat. So that way you'll kind of liquefy it and it won't get as clogged.
Interesting. Okay. I don't know if we talked. I think you kind of touched on dry eyes a little bit, but that was almost matched with the floater questions. Tons of people were dealing with dry eyes. We talked about blue light,
Yeah.
right, and oxygen.
Mm-hmm. I suffered from dry eye actually when I was in optometry school. I really think it has to do with all the artificial light that was being blasted into my eye. I don't know if you know this, but we like had to practice on each other. So sometimes like late at night we'd be practicing our skills and like literally like shining bright lights. We're talking like really strong lights into the eye. And then also on the slit lamp. I don't know. I think you've been to the eye doctor before, right? The light
Yeah.
that they use, it's super bright.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just being bombarded with that really contributed to my dryness. And then one thing I did for it was they had these thing called Bruder masks. It's kind of like a band-aid fix though, I think. There are these like fulvic eye drops that I've seen people use that they say really help. I think it just decreases the toxic load on the eye because the fulvic actually binds to all the whatever irritants are causing the dryness. But yeah, the other thing is colostrum. I like that for dry eye. Just remembering to blink. We're supposed to blink like 15 times a minute. And oftentimes people like when you're focusing on something, you start to stare. So in that case, when you're staring, the tears are just like evaporating off of the eye. And that's causing dryness. But yeah, the blue light connection is interesting because the dopamine connection and how that actually decreases the lacrimal gland from producing tears. So that's a big one.
Interesting. Yeah. Whenever I go down to visit my family in California, I notice, I don't know if it's the EMFs or just being in a drier environment, but
Mm-hmm.
within a day, like my eyes are itchy and irritated. And
Yeah.
um, yeah, I'll have to try the colostrum trick. It's interesting.
My eyes used to like literally burn when I waked up. When I woke up, like they were so dry from just all day. Like also having drops put in my eyes 24/7. Um, so much dryness. The other thing that helps, I think, is red light therapy because there's like an inflammatory component to dry eye. There's like higher amounts of inflammatory proteins that they find on the eye with dryness. So that can help with decreasing inflammation.
Yeah, and our mitochondria make water, right? And so I'd imagine if the mitochondria and the retina are not functioning, the engines, right, are not working, then, they can't get nutrients to it, toxins are stuck there and they're not making as much water. And so that's probably like one of the root causes, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. The other thing is chronic fight or flight response. Because when you're in fight or flight, you're dry. Like your mouth gets dry, your eyes get dry. So that's a big one too.
Awesome.
Take some deep breaths.
That's always good. I think that's pretty good. Let me see if I think we got to most of the questions. There were a good amount. A lot of people are dealing with eye issues. Visual snow or visual static. You ever heard about that?
I think that has to do with like ocular migraine, right? So I think that also has to do with like, you know how migraine, it's kind of related to blood flow? Yeah, so I think it's also related to that in a sense where something's happening, there's some sort of spasm, and the eye is not getting enough blood flow. It's also super related to stress. So people who are super stressed out, they oftentimes get ocular migraines. You can also get something called central serous retinopathy, and that is literally from so much cortisol that you literally get fluid under your retina in the macular area, and the fluid accumulation actually decreases your vision. Oftentimes it does resolve, but I saw a case where it was like chronic steroid use, and that caused the cortisol spike, I guess, and then the fluid never like went away in that case.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think stress and elevated cortisol is the root cause for a lot of stuff, like people waking up with alarms, getting stuck in traffic, city living, blue light, EMFs, keto. You just had it all together.
All together. And like EMFs are also reducing magnesium, so that's why people get the eye twitches. I know people ask about that a lot.
One of my movers was complaining about that today, and I
Magnesium.
was thinking of stuff. Magnesium was the first. Makes sense, right? Because the eye muscles can't relax. Is that?
Yeah, basically,
Or
it's like a spasm. So like I guess there's not enough electrolytes to some sort of electrolyte balance. It doesn't have to be magnesium. I think probably magnesium's related in every case, but it could also be like, I know sodium and potassium also go down under stress, so it could be a
okay.
lot of.
Maybe next time with her 5-hour energy drink, I'll give her some adrenal cocktail.
Just like
maybe it'll
salt and
I think that Bang drink is popular too right now.
Like it with some coconut water.
Well, this was a lot of fun, Taylor. I really appreciate you coming on and chatting about the eyes. And you said before we started recording that you're going to start taking clients at some point, right?
Yeah. So I'm actually graduating in like 2-ish weeks. And then I'm definitely going to look into getting something started, taking on clients. So I'm looking forward to it.
That's amazing. Yeah. And I'll put your Instagram optimizing EYE health. Cool play on words there.
I actually wasn't even going to start the Instagram account, and then I thought of the name, and I was like,
Gotta lock it in.
Lock it down.
That's awesome. Well, yeah, I think people will get a lot out of this. I was really surprised how many people are having issues with their eyes.
Yeah.
And it makes sense, right? Because it's, like you said, it's the window to what's going on in the body, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Right on. Well, thanks, Taylor. Stick around as I close out the show. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Well, that was jam-packed, wasn't it? I took a ton of notes, as I always do. A lot of really interesting stuff that I didn't know, especially diagnosing conditions just by looking at the blood vessels in the eyes and bleeding in the eyes. I thought that was really interesting because I feel like we're a culture that's obsessed with scientific studies and with labs, with lab results, with blood tests, and all that can be useful. But when you live your life based around those two things, I don't believe that is healthy. I really enjoy Dr. Cass Ingram's book, The Body Shape Diet. I read that when I was in college, and just being able to look at someone and the fingernails and the facial structure and the finger length, that always made more sense to me than having to go in and get your blood drawn. And are they even looking at the right marker? Are the reference ranges even correct? So many questions where all of that goes out the window when you can just look at someone and see, oh, wow, this is what's going on. So if you see that someone has curved blood vessels in their eyes, you know that they have high blood pressure, and get them on the Mitolife supplements. No, I'm just kidding. Kind of. Change the foundation and add in strategic supplementation. People ask me all the time about blood pressure, and it's really surprising to me that people are still dealing with that. I thought that was long gone, but sometimes I forget, being way up here tucked in the woods in Idaho, that there are still people that have just recently gotten off of tap water or hard water or iron fortified foods. And it's a process of switching over to a different lifestyle. And as a result of that, I believe that blood pressure will lower and come back into balance, and everything will come back into balance when you just get certain things in place. And you don't necessarily need to do a zillion labs to find out how to rebalance. I found the information about melanin and the tyrosinase enzyme and iron and carotenoids, that whole area, really fascinating. I feel like people don't think about those things enough when talking about eye health. And that's why I emphasize the accumulations of material with my CLF protocol. Of course, there's tons of factors. There's emotional traumas and environmental factors, but the accumulations in the body just amplify the harmful effects of all of those things. I thought the colostrum info was really fascinating. I have the powder from Crucial 4. I'll throw that in my pancakes, or I'll just take it straight. Really good for gum health and overall body health, immune health. There's not only those immunoglobulins, but tons of different compounds that work together to support our immune system. So she got me really excited about that. I ordered some ancestral supplements, capsules to take with me when I'm traveling. Because like I said, whenever I'm down in California, I notice that my eyes get itchy and dry. And the next time I go down there, I'm going to experiment with some new things that I've learned from this show. That's why I love doing Mitolife radios. I learned so much that I can implement and experiment with, and then circle back to you guys and let you know what worked. So this was a lot of fun for me, speaking with Taylor. I'll put her Instagram account in the show notes, and she's going to start taking clients in a few months after she graduates. I really like how she connects all the dots, because I've listened to YouTube videos of health educators on the more keto, intermittent fasting side, and they just simplify it to sugar bad, sugar harms the eyes. And I really don't think it's that simple. And we never take a step back and say, hey, is the sugar being utilized? Because obviously the cells run on glucose, and the eyes especially run on glucose. And so it's very important that the body gets it, and how it gets it matters. And just simply saying, again, gluconeogenesis, the body can get sugar from fat. We never take just that little next step forward and ask, what are the harmful effects of relying on the backup system called gluconeogenesis to get glucose? And this is what pulled me out of the fad dieting, the keto intermittent fasting lifestyle a few years ago. why am I forcing my system constantly into a backup system? It's not natural. What's natural is to fast while we sleep. We don't need to stop eating at a certain time and skip breakfast. That will actually ruin our metabolism and, in my opinion, eventually ruin our eye health and our brain health. So check out Taylor. I'm going to put the link to her page down below, and keep an eye out for when she starts taking on clients. If you're dealing with any sort of eye issue, I know a lot of people are. And Mitolife Academy is still chugging along. That's my YouTube school where I put up videos for a month and a question and answer once a month. And if you're subscribed to the Mitolife newsletter, then you'll actually get a breakdown of the videos that I released. You could call it biohacking, health optimization. I share a lot of the devices, the supplements, basically the tools that I use to help me stay balanced in various situations. I'm actually moving this weekend, so higher stress load, more stuff to do, higher demands on the system. So I'm making sure to eat frequently first and foremost. A steak a day is doing really well for me right now. Usually I'll eat eggs, steak, and potatoes because people are always wondering what I eat. And that's a very individualized thing. I have chickens here. I have my goats, so I drink quite a bit of raw goat milk. And that's pretty much it. And when I go out, kind of anything goes. I live my life. I am very aware of orthorexia. And so I've been there where I'm so ninja that I'm bringing food to a restaurant with my family and friends, and that is not healthy. So when I'm home, it's generally very simple, very basic, not a lot of food combining. That's just where I'm at currently. But I did just add in sauerkraut thanks to Mr. Morley Robbins, emphasizing the insane content of vitamin C in fermented cabbage and sauerkraut. I believe he said 600 milligrams in 1 cup. And remember that vitamin C contains the tyrosinase enzyme, as Taylor talked about. And in that tyrosinase enzyme is whole food vitamin C. And so to get that in such a big amount in sauerkraut is amazing. It's a really simple way to do it, especially if you're like me up here in Idaho, where I don't have access to fruit very often. So it would make sense that people in colder climates probably rely on sauerkraut more for their whole food vitamin C. So I've been really enjoying eating that with my eggs in the morning. Usually my breakfast is 3 or 4 eggs, a bowl of sauerkraut, and then a glass of goat's milk. And about once a week I'll have pancakes, and I'll probably start diversifying more as I find more recipes, and I'll share them. And I'll actually make a what I eat in a day video. I've been promising that for many months. People are really curious. Again, it's very simple. All the things I mentioned: butter, salt, eggs, potatoes, steak. Sometimes I'll make a little cheese quesadilla, and that's pretty much it. As always, my 2 websites, matt-blackburn.com and mitolife.co. Mitolife is my supplement company, and the products are used in my CLF protocol, calcification, lipofuscin, and fibrosis. And that blog post is on my matt-blackburn.com website. A lot of people are still not aware that I created that protocol, and it's a great thing to combine with animal nutrition and with eating foods from local farms. I think you could really move the needle with your health when you make these changes. So I gotta run. I'm in the middle of moving. I'm gonna do more solo shows, maybe one every couple months or something like that. I don't think I've done enough of them. A lot of people have requested me to do a homesteading show just by myself. So I'll do one of those, just share the failures and what I've learned homesteading here in Idaho. And I'll see you guys on next Friday's show. Stay supercharged.